Hey, everybody. Today we decided we're going to be talking about leadership um, in whichever way it really comes through. But at the end of the day, talking about each and every one of us being a leader. And if you don't think you are a leader, then you're greatly mistaken.
Exactly. Yeah. The way that we are trained in leadership and learn about it, and the way IPEC defines it, where we went for coach training, is that leadership is really any interaction where influence occurs. And the influence can be positive or negative, maximal or minimal. And then the leader is the person in that interaction who creates the biggest impact in the other. So the leader it could be a scary person, and sometimes people who use intimidation and fear and force, and people who are ruthless can create a lot of fear and in others, and that is one way of having the greatest impact on the people around you. And what we're seeing collectively, individually, is that it's not sustainable. Over time it injures oneself, it injures any organization. And hey, Ethan.
Hi.
And the organization isn't necessarily work, it could be a family, it could be a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could be even just recognizing your leadership potential in your own family, in your own house, to change some patterns and influence in a way that fuels and heals and helps to grow others. That's the kind of leadership that we are being called upon to cultivate and nurture now at this time in our history, really.
Yeah, and like you said, a leader can be can show up and lead people based on or with using fear, right? With using level 2 energy, coming in angry or very demanding and very bossy. And if that happens in a household, because most households there is a person that is stern, that is strict, that you go by my rules and my rules only because this is my house. I mean, most of us were raised that way, right? You live under my roof, you follow my rules.
And you deal with my consequences, which is usually punishment.
Yes, and that right there is a leader, but a catabolic leader is what I would refer to it. And also, I would call it more of a boss.
Yep.
Right? So what I actually also started doing with my family is, and they do it with me as well. This is like a game that we all play. So, for example, my husband will ask the kids to do something and then continuing to follow through on it, right? Because if he's the one that started this task, it's his job to make sure that everything is done the way it can be done or should be done, right? Teaching them because they don't know how to. So when he speaks and comes across as sounding like a boss, I will point out, that sounds like a boss. How would a leader respond? What would a leader say? So it's like back and forth kind of game. And then he would change and come more from a leader perspective. And then when he's not sure, he'll say, I don't know. Why don't you show me? Right? And okay, fine. I can step in and I can show you because the kids are also listening, right? So they're also learning. This is a benefit for. It's like policing ourselves and our words and how we show up because we want to be. There is no perfect, but perfect to me means progress and getting better over time, right? So the goal for all of us is to be perfect for each other, to work together as a symphony or orchestra, whatever you want to call it. And that means all of us need to be comfortable with who we are and how we want to change. And we all know the difference. Like in this house, we know what a boss sounds like and what a leader sounds like, what a boss will tell you to do and how a leader will help you to do it. and support you through the process, right?
Unless
So
you're one of the lucky ones with an emotionally intelligent boss, but in general, that's been pretty rare.
yeah, right. And it honestly, everything does start from home.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Even though as much as as I was growing up, I would say that I learned. It's like there's even a saying that kids learn from their friends more than they do from their parents, right? Because they spend more time with their friends and they're out there and they're learning. But that's not actually true. Because in the first how many years, a child is usually home, spending a lot of time at home with their parents. And then they go out there and meet friends. And yes, the friends will influence them, but essentially they have learned already, even being home for a year with a parent, whether they're speaking or not, because most of them are not speaking up until a year old, a child is still learning a great amount of how each parent is and how they are going to be showing up because it becomes their it's like a hardwiring in a way.
Yeah.
Everything that they're watching.
Within the first 7 to 8 years of a kid's life, 90% of their hard drives are full.
Yeah.
And that's unless you go through this kind of work and evaluate what we were taught and what we witnessed and observed, that 90% of that hard drive is pretty much set.
Yeah. And maybe that's the reason, like as teenagers, the way they show up as teenagers, if we pay close attention, we will see a lot of ourselves in them. Maybe not in the moment, but in the past of how we actually raised them, because for 7 or 8 years, we're raising them a certain way, and then they're digesting all this information because we all need that time to kind of like, we just took a whole entire course, we'll learn something, now let this digest and marinate, and what do we want from this? And then when they go out there into high school or older years, if we pay attention, we see a lot of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are the best mirrors for us. And when I see it, I'm like, ooh, I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I like
family in general is like when I like seeing my mom and I both took the ELI assessment. I took the first time I took it was in 2013, and my mom took it last summer, about a year ago, and the results were pretty much identical. So before I started doing this kind of work and consciously working to expand my energy, my energetic frequency, my resonating frequency, it was the exact same as my mom's, like a huge bar of level 4 when not under stress, so concern for others, like what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And then a huge bar of level 1 when under stress. And of course like a different mix of all the other energies, but that's what both of our charts looked like. And I showed her and I was like, I understand you. And even though I have grown and to you it seems like I've changed, but I understand you and what I'm advocating for here, because again, our families are our greatest mirrors. So when I see certain patterns, I think I'm being so helpful. I think I'm being a great leader and being like, hey, there's some patterns that you might want to see, but it is difficult to look into, especially when it is family. Which is why I was like, you want to work with Yana? Come on, just freaking do the work, please, so we can meet in the middle. But family is such great mirrors. So seeing it like that clear as day, like of course I picked up on those behaviors. Like I pick up on every anxious word, every anxious behavior. I would absorb that as my own. So even now in this, as conscious as I am, as much work as I've done on myself in those 7 years, I still carry the weight of my mom's anxiety over certain things. So she's super anxious about COVID, and
well, her job as well, right? Because
she's a nurse.
Yeah, she's around them.
Yeah, and I carry the weight of that, and it takes, which is I allow for that space within to carry that weight of someone else's anxiety while also understanding it's not mine. My authentic self, I'm not anxious about it, but it's useful because understanding that the anxiety that I feel is my mom's, it helps me to have some kind of barometer of what's important to me. So while if it was just me and I had no family, I'd probably be a bit more carefree about it and probably more reckless. But keeping my mom in mind and her anxiety in mind and realizing that my family really is number one. And like as this matriarchal line, like she's taking care of her mom, I want to take care of her. And just recognizing, making that evaluation within and understanding, okay, I I have the potential to impact the family. And as when I look around at my family, I can detect as an energy leadership index master practitioner, I can detect a certain pattern. So I can see, all my mom's level 1, my dad's level 3, my brother's level 1, my other brother's level 3, my grandma's level 2. And I'm like, all right, like I am the one equipped. I'm the one who's gone through this kind of work. I'm the one equipped to consciously show up. How do I want to show up? And it just keeps coming back to more level 5 and calm, and level 6 joy, and level 6 is also calm, but just that like calm. And if my mom is super anxious about something, I'm not going to tell her don't be. I'm just going to be calm, be calmness.
Yeah.
And I realize that's enough, because really the ELI gives me permission to understand that that's leadership. Like being calm, that's being a leader. I don't need to tell anyone to do anything. I don't necessarily need to inspire anyone to grow from within. I just need to, it's just enough to just lead by example and remain calm.
Yeah. And then they are the ones that will decide if they want to do the work or not. But I like the word decide, because the word decide means to basically cut off all the other possibilities. That if a person is ready to do the work on themselves, they need to cut off everything else, type of a thing, right? Anything else that is not going to be supporting that work that they were requiring themselves. So, and that work can be, it's different type of work, right? So some people, they might want to get very fit, right? So they want to introduce exercise into their life. That entails work. And in order for that to happen, they need to cut off all the other things of what is actually preventing them from doing that work themselves. And most of the time, it's going to be, you might need to get rid of the couch and get a treadmill instead. I mean, that's the extreme of it. But essentially, that's what it is.
Yeah, you have to sacrifice some things.
Exactly, right? Or replace one addiction for another.
That's everything. That right there is everything. It's all addiction.
It is.
Like, we're all addicted,
Yes.
and we just like you get to choose. We get to choose what we're addicted to. Like yesterday, I was saying, I was like, we were driving, listening to music, and I was like, I realized I'm addicted to prayer. Like I get like fully like into whatever state, like my form of worship, which is listening to music that resonates deep within my soul. And I will like sit there singing it, like praying through it. And I was like, whoa, I am like so addicted to this. If I could do it all day, every day, I would. And maybe I can. And if that's my, and we started talking about it, how we're all addicted to something, and we could just like what it is about prayer and that kind of worship, like it's more about connection. Like I'm connecting with my spirit, and I'm connecting to everything around me, everyone and everything, connecting intimately with all of creation, with all of life. And that has become my addiction, and doesn't necessarily have to be everyone's addiction, obviously, but it's a lot healthier than previous addictions: booze, Adderall, sex. Yeah. that covers it.
See, and that right there, what you have just expressed, if I don't know if anybody noticed it or not, but that right there was a leader, because you're leading by example. You're leading by sharing certain parts of you, and by people seeing that and like, oh, I want that in my life, right? And they will find ways of how they can create more of that in their life. They might not want that exact same thing, but I had given them an idea, and that's what a leader is essentially. A leader is not here to give you all the solutions. A leader is really essentially a gardener who gives you a seed, and the rest is entirely up to you. That's a leader. And that's the thing. That seed can be roses with thorns or without thorns, or it could be a weed, or it could be a really like one of those, I don't know what they're called, but it's like a really spiky weed where every leaf has like really solid spikes in it. And even the stem itself has spikes. So in order for me to pull this weed out, we have some of them creeping in the backyard. I need to put some kind of gloves on so it doesn't hurt, right? But some people, you have those kinds of seeds. That is still a leader. But it's the seed that was given, which that seed, level 1 or level 2, right? Or level 3 if you're wearing gloves. No reason you want to plan on how to take it out. But that's how leaders, like that's my understanding of a leader. That's how we all are able to lead one another, by showing up and by talking about things that most people are uncomfortable to talk about, addictions. And that's the reason why a lot of people will say, I'm not addicted to anything. I'm not. I can guarantee that there is some kind of an addiction. Even if it's an addiction of feeling sad all the time, it still becomes an addiction, right?
Addiction to pain, like we are all addicted to pain. Yeah. And we're all addicted to adrenaline. There plenty of people are addicted to the news, and there's a reason.
Yeah.
The news is designed to be addictive.
Yeah.
And
there's a good documentary my husband and I watched as well, where a guy that used to do like stunts for movies for many years, he got injured, and then it gave him the opportunity to kind of step back and watch what this whole TV and all the stuff that's on TV is about, and it really, really interesting. And the way he even said television, it's tell a vision. And what did people used to do back in the day? They used to go within, come out, and tell you a vision.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're telling us a vision on TV, which is actually brainwashing us to, again, the brain doesn't know what we're seeing on TV is real. Sorry, it doesn't know that it's not real. It sees it as it is real, as it's actually happening. So that's how we are literally brainwashing ourselves. And a lot of people are watching the news, like you said. What kind of people usually does the news make?
I mean, they don't call it programming for nothing. Like, it's literally called programming. Television.
Yeah, that's another word.
So it takes a lot to decondition ourselves, and I have a lot of compassion for previous generations, realizing that TV was a big deal for them.
Yeah.
And
it still is.
It still is, yeah. But like when it came out, and so, and the options were limited. The options for information, the options for news, and advertisements were major, like 1950s Mad Men, and so previous generations were very curated. Like their perceptions were basically curated by ad agencies, television programming, and news.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of compassion for previous generations who that's their whole reality, and I get it. Like I get that that's like they're living with my parents has been, at this point in my life, has been so informative in terms of like I'll have a call with you or a Zoom with the coven, and then I'm not there now, but then go out into the rest of the house and chat with my parents and realize, wow, we really live in completely different worlds. And that's where my leadership comes in, because it's not my job to convince them to come into my world. It's just my job to show them that how fulfilled I am. Like, I walk out off of a coven call and I am like, I imagine that I am glowing. I am so fulfilled because we connect so deeply. And I believe that overall that's what the addictions are about. I think we're all trying to connect and we don't know how, because it's been scary to it's scary to perceive one another objectively without any judgment. It's scary to hold space in that way, and it's also scary to be received that way, and to say to someone, "This is who I am," and to let someone love us that way.
Yeah.
And that's how we connect. And over time, TV and pharma has done a really great job, and the government and corporations have done a really great job of not just separating us from each other, but separating us from self, because that's what ads do. Commercials are basically saying you're not good enough, so you need to buy this,
Yeah.
and that'll make you feel better. And so we've been escaping through TV, through drugs, because we haven't really learned that connection within and that deep connection with others, that intimacy is available. And
Yeah.
and that's really I guess what my new addiction is intimacy. Like, not romantic intimacy, but intimacy with all of life, intimacy with you, intimacy with my coven, intimacy with strangers, with Mother Earth. When I'm sticking my finger in Mother Earth's dirt and putting a seed, like, that's super intimate. And I think we could get a lot done together. We could unify and connect and take care of each other, take care of one another, if we were to collectively trade escapism addictions and addictions numbing agents, and trade them for that kind of intimacy. And it's scary because it requires deep feeling.
Yeah.
As the news, like, as you said, you watch the news, they show some, typical, like, breaking news, emergency alert, and the reaction that we're gonna feel is either level one, helpless to make a difference, like, oh, all this is so terrible. Like, I hear what my parents say and what my grandma says, and they watch the news all day, and they're like, oh, it's so terrible, it's so terrible. And when you're thinking it's terrible, how are you gonna feel?
Terrible.
You're gonna be you're gonna feel helpless to make a difference. So you're just gonna sit there. And then the other reaction that I've seen is my dad. He has these level 2 reactions. So the news will be on, and I'll hear him yelling at the TV, like, "Oh, you fucking moron!" I was like, that is like, I know that's level 2, so I know that's creating stress, and I know that's creating cortisol and inflammation. So we're in the middle of a global pandemic, which people with compromised immune systems are more susceptible to a rough time with this virus. And the news is compromising, the addiction to the news is compromising people's immune systems. So it's just constantly jacking up the cortisol.
Yeah.
So, but it is addictive. That's why it's so addictive. Because then it also gives you, I've noticed that the news especially makes people feel like they are doing something, because it's like, if they know what's going on in the news, then they're educated, they're in the know, they're aware, without even.
That's controlled. Like, I'll find the history and I'll share it with you. And if anybody who's interested, feel free to reach out to me, because I'm not going to promise to put it down below, but I'll give you an excuse to reach out to me and connect with me. But he was saying that all of the news is controlled. Everything that's put out there is controlled. And the media, that's why certain people, when they get to a certain level of fame, Who were they using? Katy Perry, I think they were using as a really good example where she was so innocent and singing about church and the choir and everything. And now look at her songs; they're all about the devil. Like complete opposite is because that doesn't sell, not anymore. So let's go sing about this because that sells. So basically, people are changing as well because that's not what the news wants. That's not what they want. So do what they want if you want to be successful. And that, to me, when I heard it, that's another reason why I spent the entire week in like level one because I was like, I'm not going to be controlled.
Yeah.
No matter how big I might ever get, I refuse to be controlled.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Told what to
What are
do.
they gonna do? This is like what I tell my mom when I get super like civil disobedience. Like I'm not gonna pay my taxes. Like fuck them. And my mom like it like scares my mom, and I'm like, what? Like I didn't come here to make it out alive, so I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
And if somebody thinks that they are,
Right?
nice dream. None of us come out of this alive.
Right? Like I'm gonna die anyways. Might as well die like fighting the system. What I came here for.
And change it for these ones.
Screen time, screen time.
Right? So that way they don't have to perhaps fight the system.
And for the next 7, I keep the next 7 generations in mind.
Yeah.
And that's really like going back to leadership. The way I think of leadership is conscious leadership is being conscious and aware in each moment that we have a choice. And I incorporate some tricks in my own like thought evaluation. Like if there's a situation, if there's conflict, I have a choice. How do I want to handle it? Am I going to react? Am I going to my default will be the first reaction, which is like freeze, and fear and like I still desperately want to avoid conflict, like that, it's still there. That level 1 is still so strong. But then I recognize it, and then I realize I'm like, how dangerous, how threatening is it really? It's just people like yelling names. It's just people like gonna call me a brat or like some name. Like how scary is that really? And I go through this process and then I choose. And something that I love choosing is just compassion, seeing through the lens of compassion in whatever it is, and being able to look through someone who has completely opposite opinions as I do, and instead of interacting through the head of being like, well, like from the place of opinion, is my goal and how I lead is to connect through the heart, and seeing someone who holds completely opposite opinions about the world as I do, and still see them as my brother or sister and care for their heart. Like there's still a heart. And so in those situations, I'll make that choice to just, even if I don't say a word and I just look lovingly and can be a loving presence, that's a choice. That's one of the choices I make with loving awareness. Ram Dass's I am loving awareness is just like the mantra that keeps me at choice in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
I can pull that out and think like, how would Ram Dass view this person who wants to provoke me and engage me, and then just look at them lovingly and think there's a soul in there.
Yeah.
Having a tough time.
And that's what the way I kind of look at that situation is this quote that some you might have heard and some of you might have heard or not. It goes like this: hurt people hurt people. So in other words, when we are hurt, that pain is going to escape, is going to come out. And we tend to hurt other people because of our hurt, because we are not in a clear space.
We don't have access. Yeah,
our mind is clouded and it's riddled with pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why understanding that, why is this person out to get me? They're not out to get you. Why is this person hurting me or my feelings? They're not hurting you or or your feelings. They're just hurt themselves. So instead of asking all those questions, how is this person or what's causing this person the pain? Right? Where is it coming from? And trying to understand that person and see them for as they are, as a human being who also has feelings and emotions like we have ourselves. And like we know ourselves, sometimes we don't know what to do with them. We can't even decipher them sometimes. They have the same problem as we do. And we all know that every problem has a solution, right? You're always going back to that stone, problem and solution, right? Or the hand. That's why I do the hand, because even in class, that's what I did. It's like I'm looking at the stone in my hand, and it's a problem. Turn it over, solution. Because when you flip it over, the rock also falls. You dropped the problem. So, yeah, and I know I'm looking at the time now too. We have to go, but I think that kind of ends nicely with problem and solution. Looking at everything, that problem feels heavy, but if you just flip on the other side and let go of the problem, let it drop, you will find a solution on the other side. Sometimes it might take a little bit of time to get there, but just keep trying, keep going, keep trying to find different ways to let go.
And treat yourself with compassion through the process.
Yeah,
that's important.
Exactly.
Because you're not like, it's so hard to perceive available options and solutions when we're clouded by the pain.
Yeah.
So like going back to the hurt people, it's not on purpose. It's just, there's like, when I think back of the times when I've been in the most pain and I've hurt people, obviously was not on purpose. I love everybody. My heart is pure. I just couldn't perceive beyond the level one desperation of wanting someone to care about me.
Mm-hmm.
And that desperation led to any way I went about trying to get someone to care about me, which, coming from a catabolic place, is just inevitably I'm going to hurt someone if that's how I'm going about it, coming from a place of pain. So if you're recognizing that that some of the strategies we use to get people to care about us, really, yeah, like just getting people to care, getting people, like, even my ex would start fights with me all the time. I one day was like, is this because you think I don't care? Because I would just try to be peaceful while he'd be yelling at me. And I was like, why is he still yelling? And then one day I was like, I realized he wasn't going to give up until he got me to engage. And then I could see the little boy in him. And I was like, is this because you think I don't care? And he's like, yeah. It's like, you don't care. He's like, you're aloof. I'm like, wow. So
it's kind of childish, like you said, like a little boy.
Yeah, because like he's hurting.
Yeah, that's how they are. Like my son also, he knows how to annoy his sister, and he'll just go and like literally like poke, not literally with the finger, but he'll do that thing, and she asks him to stop, and she's engaging with him. So he's getting the attention, not necessarily the attention he wants, but it's attention regardless. So with your ex, he was trying to poke the bear, but this bear was calm and not engaging. And that's where he felt like he was losing, right? And trying to get you to engage and engage so you can give him the attention, but it's not the attention that he actually wanted, because that's the attention he was used to.
We can save that for another, just like attention. How we all learn to get attention, and that's like a whole topic. Because I'm gonna jump onto the coven call, but I'm gonna write that down somewhere.
Yeah. Is it the same code? Because I'll see if I can hop on in a little bit.
Yep, same code.
Okay, awesome.
Yay.
Okay, this was awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Much love and appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, bye.
Next time, bye.